Blackwater Creek. Even its name evoked fear. A chill settled in the air whenever it was spoken. The creek, a black, oily ribbon winding through Cedar Hollow, was more than just a body of water. It was a vein of darkness, pulsing with unspoken horrors. Locals whispered of a curse. They spoke of vanished souls swallowed by the creek's murky depths. The stories were passed down through generations, each telling more chilling than the last. The truth, they said, lurked beneath the water's surface, waiting, watching. The air around the creek always felt heavy, thick with the weight of unseen eyes. A sense of dread clung to anyone who dared to venture too close. The whispers started subtly, faint rustlings in the undergrowth, murmurs on the wind. They hinted at forgotten tragedies, at restless spirits seeking solace or perhaps revenge. Blackwater Creek held its secrets close, but sometimes, under the pale light of the moon, the secrets rose to the surface and screamed. Cedar Hollow wore its history like a shroud. Founded in the early 1800s, the town had always held a darkness within its heart. The first settlers spoke of an ancient evil that resided in the woods surrounding Blackwater Creek, an entity that demanded sacrifice. They whispered of a curse placed upon the land, a curse that promised misfortune and suffering to anyone who dared to disturb the creek's peace. Over the years, people went missing. They vanished without a trace, last seen near the creek's edge. The townsfolk blamed the curse. They whispered about the missing souls, forever bound to the creek, their cries for help lost on the wind. The stories became legend, the legend a chilling reality. Cedar Hollow learned to fear Blackwater Creek. They avoided its banks, heeding the whispers of warning passed down through generations. But the creek's pull was strong, and sometimes curiosity proved stronger than fear. Daniel had always been drawn back to Cedar Hollow. His grandparents' house, perched precariously close to the edge of town, had been his sanctuary as a child. But it was the darkness that truly called to him. The stories of Blackwater Creek, whispered by his grandfather on stormy nights, had taken root in his imagination. Now, after years away, he was back, drawn by a need to understand the darkness that permeated his childhood. He began his exploration where the stories always began, Blackwater Creek. The air grew heavy as he approached the water's edge. The stench of decay assaulted his nostrils. Strange symbols etched into the bark of the ancient trees twisted into existence as he walked deeper into the woods. He found offerings left at the base of a gnarled oak, bones, trinkets, a child's doll with vacant eyes. The deeper he ventured, the more he felt an unsettling presence watching him. A cold dread crept up his spine. He knew then that the stories were more than just tales to frighten children. There was something dark and ancient at play here, and he was determined to uncover it. The Cedar Hollow Library was a repository of forgotten things. Dust motes danced in the stale air, illuminated by the weak glow of a single lamp. Daniel spent hours poring over brittle pages, searching for clues amongst the town's meticulously kept records. He found newspaper clippings detailing the disappearances, each one more unsettling than the last. Then he stumbled upon a name, Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth had been a young woman who lived in Cedar Hollow in the late 1800s. She was said to be beautiful, with long flowing hair and eyes that reflected the darkness of the creek itself. But Elizabeth was different. She was drawn to the creek, fascinated by its power. The townsfolk whispered that she spoke to something in the water, something ancient and evil. One night Elizabeth disappeared. Her body was never found. Some whispered that she had run off, seeking to escape the suffocating fear that clung to Cedar Hollow. Others believed that the creek had claimed her, just as it had claimed so many before her. Daniel suspected the truth was far more sinister. Days turned into weeks as Daniel delved deeper into the mystery of Blackwater Creek. He sought out the oldest residents of Cedar Hollow, hoping to glean fragments of truth from their fading memories. An old man, Tom, with eyes that held the weight of too many years, finally relented to Daniel's pleas. He led Daniel to a clearing deep in the woods, a place where the air hung heavy with sorrow and fear. "It's her," Tom rasped, his voice trembling. "Elizabeth, she guards the creek now. She lures them in, those who don't heed the warnings." He pointed to a small, moss-covered headstone half hidden by the undergrowth. The inscription was barely visible. Elizabeth Warren, 1868 to 1889. May she find peace in the embrace of the water. Tom's words sent a chill through Daniel's bones. He realized the truth. Elizabeth wasn't a victim, she was a conduit, a gatekeeper for whatever lurked in the depths of Blackwater Creek, and now Daniel had attracted her attention. The night came on silent and swift. A dense fog rolled in from the creek, blanketing the woods in an eerie silence. Daniel found himself drawn back to the clearing. He felt a presence there, watching him from the shadows. As he neared the creek's edge, a feeling of dread washed over him, icy and relentless. He stared into the murky depths, his heart pounding in his chest, and then he saw it. A face in the water. It was Elizabeth. Her skin was pale and cold, her eyes two black pits that stared up at him with an unnerving intensity. Her lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear, but he understood. She was calling him, beckoning him to join her in the darkness. Panic surged through him. He stumbled back from the creek's edge, his mind screaming at him to run. He turned to flee, but something held him fast. An invisible force was pulling him towards the water, towards Elizabeth's outstretched hand. The curse endures. Daniel's screams were swallowed by the fog. The woods fell silent, the only sound the gentle lapping of the water against the bank. The face in the water vanished, leaving behind only ripples that spread out into the darkness. The next morning, the townsfolk found Daniel's belongings scattered near the creek's edge. His torn backpack, his phone, a single hiking boot lying amidst the tangled undergrowth. Of Daniel there was no sign. The search parties found nothing. Daniel had vanished just like all the others, swallowed by the woods, claimed by the curse. The townsfolk whispered that Elizabeth had taken him, that he was now a part of Blackwater Creek, his soul forever bound to its depths. Cedar Hollow mourned another lost soul. The fear that had always simmered beneath the surface of their lives flared anew. They knew with a chilling certainty that the curse of Blackwater Creek was real, and it was far from over. A town in fear. The disappearance of Daniel sent shockwaves through Cedar Hollow. The town, once a place of quiet despair, was now gripped by a tangible fear. Doors were bolted at night, whispers of the creek echoing in the silence. Parents kept their children close, their eyes darting nervously towards the woods that bordered the town. The creek, once a source of life, was now a symbol of death and despair. The town council called for an investigation, but the police were baffled. There was no evidence, no trace of Daniel beyond the few belongings found scattered by the creek. The official explanation was that he had become disoriented in the woods and succumbed to the elements. But the townsfolk knew better. They had seen the fear in Daniel's eyes in the days leading up to his disappearance. They had heard the stories. They knew the truth. Blackwater Creek had claimed another victim. Whispers of madness. As time passed and the initial shock subsided, whispers began to circulate through Cedar Hollow. Whispers about the sanity of those who dared to venture too close to the creek. They spoke of strange behavior, of people hearing voices and seeing things in the shadows. The townsfolk pointed to the history of the creek, to the curse that had haunted Cedar Hollow for generations. Was it the creek's influence, they wondered, that drove people to madness? Or was the fear itself passed down through generations, poisoning their minds? Whatever the cause, a collective paranoia began to grip Cedar Hollow. Neighbors viewed each other with suspicion. Friends turned on friends, their minds clouded by whispers of the creek and the secrets it held. The line between reality and nightmare was blurring, and Blackwater Creek was the focal point of their unraveling. Blackwater's claim. Blackwater Creek flowed onward, indifferent to the fear and sorrow it caused. The black water, reflecting the overcast sky, seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy. The trees that lined its banks stood as silent sentinels, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes as if contorted by some unseen force. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the weight of unspoken secrets. The legend of Blackwater Creek lived on, its grip on Cedar Hollow tightening with each passing season. It was a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their lives, a darkness that could swallow them whole at any moment. The creek had claimed its victims, and it would claim again. It was only a matter of time, for Blackwater Creek always collected its due. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel for more chilling tales.